There's a secret in history that built the first financial superpower, a nation with no army strong enough to conquer, no land rich enough to farm, and yet it ruled empires from behind the curtain. That nation was Venice, and its weapon wasn't steel, it was glass. While kingdoms fought for territory, Venice built something far more powerful, a system of money, credit, and trade. So advanced it turned a lagoon of fishermen into the richest city on earth. For nearly 500 years, Venice controlled the flow of wealth between East and West. Its ships carried silk from China, spice from India, and silver from Europe. Every transaction passed through Venetian hands, every coin was counted by its merchants. But here's what made it unstoppable. Venice didn't just trade goods, it traded trust. The city invented government bonds, insurance, letters of credit, the foundations of modern finance centuries before Wall Street existed. They called it the Casa di San Giorgio, the world's first public bank. Ordinary citizens could buy shares in the state. Venice had discovered the formula that would define modern power: wealth through belief, not conquest. For a while it worked perfectly. Gold and silver flowed in. Glassmakers on the island of Murano turned sand into beauty, a luxury so valuable it became a currency of its own. Venetian glass was worth more than gold in royal courts. The Republic seemed eternal, but the same pattern that destroyed every empire was already written in its ledgers. At its height, Venice looked invincible. Its navy ruled the Mediterranean. Its coins, the gold ducat, were trusted from Cairo to Constantinople. Merchants spoke its language, kings borrowed its money, and on the island of Murano, glassmakers guarded secrets worth kingdoms. But behind the glitter, the cracks began to form, because every empire built on credit eventually forgets the difference between wealth created and wealth imagined. Venice had mastered the art of illusion: loans to merchants, bonds to citizens. The state promised returns backed by trade routes that stretched thousands of miles across dangerous seas. And for centuries it worked, as long as the ships kept returning. Then came the wars. Constantinople fell. The Ottomans rose. The spice routes shifted eastward, and the profits that fed the Venetian engine began to thin. But instead of shrinking, Venice doubled down. They issued more bonds, borrowed from future trade that no longer existed, and inflated their credit system far beyond what their economy could sustain. It didn't look like collapse, it looked like prosperity. Palaces rose on borrowed marble, banquets overflowed while the treasury hollowed out. The ducat stayed beautiful, but it was a reflection, not reality. Venice had built a hall of mirrors where the image of wealth was brighter than wealth itself. And that's the moment when every empire makes the same mistake, when confidence replaces gold and belief becomes the only thing holding the system together. For Venice, that moment had arrived. It didn't happen with an invasion. There were no burning fleets, no foreign armies at the gates. Venice didn't fall in a day. It dissolved in slow motion. The warning signs were quiet at first. Merchants delayed their payments. Ships returned half empty. The great families, once lenders to kings, became borrowers themselves. And yet the city glittered. The music never stopped. In the Senate, old men still toasted to La Serenissima, the most serene republic. But serenity was just the surface. Underneath, the numbers no longer added up. Bondholders demanded payment in gold. The treasury paid in promises. And as confidence faded, so did the ducat's power. The coin that had once built empires now bought almost nothing. Venice tried to mask the decay with spectacle. Festivals, alliances, pageants on the Grand Canal. But wealth is not a performance, it's a foundation. And once that foundation cracks, no amount of beauty can hold the city above water. The merchant republic that had financed crusades, that had invented modern banking, that had ruled the seas with contracts instead of cannons, was now bankrupt. Not because it lacked gold, but because it had lost the world's belief. When trade moved west, to Portugal, Spain, and later England, Venice was left behind, a museum of its own glory, a warning written in marble and salt, because every empire of money ends the same way, not with fire but with silence. When the market stopped believing, the empire stops breathing. They didn't conquer with armies, they conquered with contracts. In the 1600s, the Dutch Republic rose from the swamps of Europe to rule the seas, not through blood, but through balance sheets. While Spain chased silver and Venice traded spices, Amsterdam discovered something far more powerful: the future. The Dutch East India Company, the VOC, was the first corporation in history. Ordinary citizens could buy shares, trade them, profit from voyages they would never see. Risk was no longer personal, it was fractionalized, and that changed everything. For the first time, wealth could expand faster than ships could sail. Paper became more powerful than metal. The VOC issued bonds, shares, dividends, all ideas that define markets today. They sold time itself, future profits in exchange for present trust. But with innovation came the oldest temptation: leverage. Speculation infected the streets of Amsterdam. Tulips, flowers, became worth fortunes. The market didn't care about reality. It cared about belief. And when that belief cracked, so did the illusion of endless growth. In a single winter, fortunes vanished. Investors rioted. And the empire that had mastered finance learned a brutal truth: you can't sell time forever. Still, their legacy survived. The stock market, central banking, joint stock companies, all born from the Dutch experiment. They didn't just trade goods, they traded risk, and in doing so invented modern capitalism. But the story didn't end there, because across the channel a new player was watching closely. Britain had seen how paper could command the world, and soon it would build an empire not of sails or soldiers, but of debt, trust, and a single promise: that its currency would never break. The British Empire didn't just rule the world, it financed it. By the 18th century, London had become something new, not just a capital of power, but of promises. The Crown learned the lesson the Dutch had written in gold and ink: that true empire isn't about land or armies, it's about who the world owes money to. Britain perfected debt. War after war, it borrowed more. But instead of collapsing, it grew stronger. Because every loan it issued became another chain of trust binding the world to London. The Bank of England turned royal IOUs into currency. Government debt became the backbone of finance. Investors didn't buy empire, they bought interest. And in return, Britain built a global network of trade, insurance, and credit, so vast that even defeat couldn't break it. While France burned through revolutions and Spain drowned in silver, Britain quietly turned paper into power. Its navy protected trade, its banks priced it, and its pound, backed by gold, became the language of global commerce. But beneath the elegance of the pound lay a paradox: every empire of debt grows by spending tomorrow's strength today. The colonies paid the price. India's wealth drained to London. Industrial workers toiled to sustain the illusion of endless prosperity. Then came the wars: Napoleon, Crimea, the World Wars, each one funded not by treasure, but by trust. And when that trust began to run out, so did the empire. By 1945, Britain still had the crown, but America held the credit. The pound was finished. The dollar rose. And history, as always, reset the balance. Because power doesn't vanish, it transfers. Every currency that rules the world inherits the same curse: to believe it can defy the pattern. But from gold to paper to code, the equation never changes. When belief exceeds backing, collapse is only a matter of time. Every empire has a heartbeat. You can't hear it in parliaments or battlefields. You hear it in the sound of a coin hitting a table, a promise being trusted, a currency being believed. From the deserts of Persia to the ports of Venice, from Amsterdam's canals to London's counting houses, the story never really changed. Only the names did. Rome stamped silver. Venice traded silk. The Dutch sold the future. Britain borrowed it. And America printed it. Each believed their system was eternal, too advanced, too clever, too powerful to fail. But history has no favorites. It just keeps perfecting the same lesson: that money is not wealth, it's faith. When faith is earned, it builds empires. When it's abused, it destroys them. And right now, we're living through the next chapter of that same equation. Digital ledgers have replaced gold. Algorithms mint new currencies in the cloud. Governments print debt like data. And the question is no longer, what backs your money? But, who still believes in it? Because the fall never begins with chaos. It begins with confidence, quietly slipping away, one investor, one nation, one transaction at a time. That's how Rome fell. That's how the pound broke. And that's how every empire ends. Not when enemies attack, but when belief runs out. History doesn't repeat. It compounds. Each collapse adds another layer of truth. A reminder that power, prosperity, and paper all weigh the same in the end. They're just promises, and every promise has an expiration date. This is Histoprofit, where the past isn't just remembered, it's decoded. Because the secret to the future of money has always been hidden in the ruins of the last empire that thought it would never fall.